Thomas the Tank Engine, is it sexist? Yes, says Professor Shauna Wilton from Alberta University in Canada, who clearly doesn't have much better to do with her time. She studied more than 20 episodes of the TV show and found of the 50 main characters, only 8 were female, and most of them were horrid. There's Rosie the Stalker, who follows Thomas everywhere. There's vain, work-shy Isabella, who doesn't like to graft in case it damages her paintwork. While haughty Emily, well, she reckons she's a cut above the rest.
Toby and Percy were waiting to be coupled up when Emily chuffed in. She was very excited about the castle. "Percy," she whistled, "I've had an idea. Let's play a game." Percy looked pleased. "I'll be the queen and I'll tell you what to do today," she said. "It'll be fun." Percy liked the idea of having fun. But Toby thought Emily's idea was silly. "You have to be clever to be a queen," he said wisely, "and know the right thing to do." "I always know what to do," huffed Emily. Toby laughed. That made Emily cross.
It is disgusting, there's no doubt about that. Trains coupling up, squirting hot steam everywhere. I was shocked. Anyway, Professor Wilton says shows like Thomas the Tank Engine carry messages that influence developing young minds. And she's backed by the United States Education Department, which argues that a lack of female characters in books limits girls' aspirations. But the Reverend Audrey's Thomas the Tank Engine isn't the only offender, of course. I mean, plenty of kids' classics, particularly those written in the first half of the last century, are lacking in the female empowerment department. None of the main characters in cartoons like Asterix or Captain Pugwash are girls. What about a classic like Peter Pan, filled with lost boys, with only wannabe housewife Wendy and stroppy, possessive, premenstrual fairy Tinkerbell there to represent the ladies? Mind you, it has to be said, lads, she is pleasingly mute, that Tinkerbell. Enid Blyton, she's enjoyed something of a renaissance of late after years in the doldrums due to widespread criticism of the sexist, racist nature of some of her tales. But the thing is, if these books poison and warp young minds, where did the sexual revolution and feminism come from? Because all those bright women burning their bras and demanding equal rights in the late 60s, early 70s would have been brought up reading these books as children.
And hating them. But hating
well,
them.
Well, maybe, but it couldn't have done them any harm. And anyway, kids today, they consume a whole lot of different and varied stuff. Dora the Explorer, she wouldn't be seen dead with an iron. So maybe, in the end, it all balances it out, Steve.
Well, I do. This is a lot of these things that you're talking about, and Captain Pugwash and Audrey's Thomas the Tank Engine, I mean, these were written in a different time. So, of course, they are promoting different values. It's a kind of England, very twee England, Enid Blyton, the famous Five. All of this stuff is an anachronism, of course. It's a throwback. What I find more objectionable is something that my daughter will occasionally watch, which is something like Hannah Montana, which is the biggest. And this promotes wanting to be famous and
famous and beautiful,
and thin, and it's vile.
It's worse than that because she's not got brown hair when she's at school. Is that one?
That's right.
So she's got brown hair when she's at school, which means that no one can recognise her. Then suddenly, when she's blonde and she's a pop star, then everyone recognises her. She's famous, and it's amazing. I hate that. That's not allowed on in that book.
Sorry. We'll leave that to one side. On the subject of these books. As a parent, Steve, would you worry if your children got hold of Thomas the Tank Engine?
Well, certainly not. And the thing is, you read them nursery rhymes, and if you started to worry about deconstructing nursery rhymes, there's an awful lot where you'd say, this story is bad because the woman stays at home and they have no money and she has to work, and you can deconstruct anything and give it a kind of 21st century spin on it and be appalled by it. But I think you have to treat them as innocent stories and teach them fairness and moderation later in life. I mean,
I was told off when I was about 8 or 9 years old by my English teacher for reading Enid Blyton way back then. And as I said, I had a bit of a renaissance of late. Do you worry about these books, girl, whether they're warping Honey's young, impressionable mind?
What my daughter who watches The Mighty Bush in Will and Grace. Do you know what I mean? She's got quite eclectic taste, so I'm very fortunate. I've never watched Thomas the Tank Engine myself, but no, I do think there's a lot of sexism in these cartoons. But like you say, I think if your children are bright and you're intelligent enough to teach them.
What if they're not? What if
my
they're just
problem.
absorbing everything you put in front of them and they
well
start
then,
thinking that
I
women
don't
have to go
know,
around,
really.
you know, sucking up to guys and they've got to look after their paintwork and they mustn't get it scratched and it's all girly, girly, girly.
I don't think
It's
surely
hardly,
can't
it's hardly
make-
sending out the message that you as a young woman should look at the world as a place where you can do anything. It's not enabling, is it? It's restricting.
I don't really know. I honestly don't know. I don't think. Do they really have that much effect on children at that age?
Well, I don't know, but this
This is what
professor
professor
seems to
says.
think...
I mean, I'm sure I read Enid Blyton when I was younger, and
Never did you know, Arm.
Yeah, I used to watch Tiswas as well, behind the sofa like that. Birds. Yeah, so no.
What about you, Oz? I mean, presumably it's been a while since you read these books, like it has for me.
Well, no, I'm a very bad. I'm a hoarder. I keep stuff up in the attic. But I think, firstly, the professor seems to be bonkers, which is, you know, all this stuff about endless finding something to actually make your name about when you're in some small university in Western Canada. I think it's just every professor needs to get into newspapers once. Well, she's done it. Excellent. Let's move on. I didn't actually realise there were any female characters in Thomas the Tank Engine at all.
Neither did I.
That's what I take.
They have no place on the
which
railway.
girls do
They should
I
be
know?
at home doing the ironing, shouldn't they?
Well, I mean,
Breathing.
but I read Thomas the Tank Engine, and I read it. I've never seen the thing. Although I thought Ringo Starr's ability to mimic women's voices was astonishing.
He's got
It was nearly as good as his ability to play the drums, which I also thought was absolutely astonishing. And compose songs. Remember he composed a song
called Yellow Submarine, wasn't it?
What was it called?
He just sung that.
No, it's called the one who went ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Okay, you stop now, Ringo. I can't remember how to stop. You know, all that stuff. Anyway, I thought he was.
You don't lie awake.
It's engines. It's you know, it's fun. I cannot seriously believe that girls are going to walk along there and say, "Oh, I'm getting warped by this." I mean, when was the last time you saw a female train spotter? Has there ever been one? I don't think there's ever been
used
a
to
female.
be a train spotter.
When I was a kid.
Yeah, but it's no excuse. You were a train spotter.
I'll tell you, I heard a sound in London last year, and I said, "Oh my God, that's 34067 Tangmere." And I looked out of the window, and 34067 Tangmere went past the window. Worry about me.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen an engine since I was, what, 8 years old? And I remembered the noise it made.
See, this is the scarring that train spotting can do. We shouldn't be talking about watching the programme.
Imagine the damage that Thomas the Tank Engine
Exactly.
did. Let's throw it open to you. Is Thomas sexist? Kirsty.
We have Jill on line 1.
Jill, good morning.